Yeah, good morning. So we are continuing with the Uddhav Gita, chapter 15 and verse 9 onwards. Yesterday we had concluded at a particular point where we were trying to understand what are the three methods of reaching the ultimate liberation, realization, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. There are only three methods. So the first one is called the method of knowledge. Second one is called the method of work based, that is, you have to do something, which is Karma Yoga. And the third one is called the Bhakti Marg, which means the path of devotion. So it was told to you that the first path is when you give up everything. That means you get disgusted with the work, you give up everything, and you don't have to carry anything at all and go only towards emancipation. That is the only thing to do. Second one was work based, where you do the work. You have to be motivated only by the work, not by results. So results are not at all concerned over here. Your job is to do work only and not expect anything out of the results. Then the third path was the path of devotion, where you are completely lost in Krishna. It's called the single pointed devotion. There is nothing else besides Krishna. So you are doing your material worldly jobs on one hand and you are focused on Krishna because the material world is a part of his domain also. He has given you the job. So you do it for him alone, not for anybody else. So this is where we stopped. So we are continuing verse 9 now. This is Uddhav Gita chapter 15 verse 9, the last message of Sri Krishna to Uddhava. One should perform work until one has got disgusted with it or until one has developed a veneration for listening to tales about me and that kind of a thing. That means it's a reiteration of whatever I have said just now to you. The two paths which he's mentioning over here just now, the first path is called the path of knowledge. When you have to go on the path of knowledge, you have to be completely disgusted with work. Now here the understanding could be that, oh, I'm fed up of my job. I think right from the beginning we have heard people say this. Doesn't mean that. Disgusted with work simply translates into you have found everything futile. That means not only the work, but also earning money, looking after family members, or raising a family, or taking care of the world around you, running after petty stuff, desires of all kind. You have got completely fed up of all of them because you have seen futility in them. You do not understand why everybody does this. And your job is to now find the peace, the solace, the tranquility which you want. You will find that most human beings, they say that I want peace, I want tranquility, I want happiness, I want that ultimate state of being in a very happy state. I just have to put my legs up, sit over there, admiring the view, and just be lost. That is not spirituality for you. That is just being tamasic. Tamas is the way in which people find their happiness. I'll give you examples. Human beings find happiness in tamas alone. How do they find it? They look out for means, different means. Like, say, for example, drinking. drugs, cigarettes, you name it, smoking, drinking, womanizing, running after petty stuff, lazing, sleeping, well, holidaying. They love holidays. People love holidays. They want to go on a holiday and enjoy themselves. That is tamasic mode. Spirituality has nothing to do with tamas. But if you are seeking enlightenment, you are seeking liberation from this cycle of rebirths. If you want to know the truth, then you have to go towards spiritual. So when you get disgusted, when you understand the complete futility of what you do in this world, when you realize that the amount of money that you have been earning all your life is not giving you a farthing of happiness also. You have earned, you have learned, you have done so many things. You might have done a PhD. At the end of the PhD also you are wondering, what else? What am I doing like this? Why should I do this? So the disgust is not because you hate work, but because you have to find a higher calling. And higher calling doesn't mean happiness. Today, people sell happiness. People try to market happiness and they say that you can get this kind of a happiness in this world. How do they market it? They market it by means of showing you very beautiful bodies sitting in meditation, posture of meditation. You know, very beautiful bodies. Why are they not showing fat, ugly, and obnoxious people? Have you ever thought of it? It is a marketing exercise. It's a marketing exercise. It has nothing to do with enlightenment. An enlightened master is not even interested in telling you about these things. I want you to think, those who have read some old stories like the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, or for that matter, any of the Purans. If you have read the Purans, these are very ancient scriptures, isn't it? Very ancient books. Also, the ones that we are doing, like this is from the Bhagavad Puran, what we are doing. Where did the guru or the master or the enlightened person go and tell the world, I am going to give you happiness, I am going to give you peace, I am going to give you this and I am going to give you that. Follow my traditional path. What traditional path? Yoga. Sit in yogic postures. Well, even a monkey can sit in a yogic posture. And for that matter, have you ever seen the pandas in the zoo? The pandas in the zoo can sit better than us. They will be munching one bamboo and sitting over there, and they keep on rolling down. They are much happier. Instead of learning from this kind of people, why not learn from the pandas? Got it? So, a spiritually enlightened person doesn't even talk of happiness. I want you to use that, 5 cents of brain or maybe 1 cent of brain that you have or 1 paisa of brain. Think about it. Did Vashishta Muni or Vishwamitra or Parshuram or any of these great masters from the past ever tell their disciple, you please come to me, there is an advertisement board outside, please come, I will teach you? Doesn't come like that. And did Vashishta Muni, for that matter, ever say there is happiness anywhere? Vashishta's greatest disciple was Sri Ram. I want you to think of Sri Ram and tell me, have you ever seen a picture of Sri Ram laughing or smiling? Hey, hey, hey. Does he ever do that? So, what is this thing which people think of? That there is happiness at the end of it. If happiness was the goal, then Sri Ram would be happily married, happily ever after. You know that ever after stories that you see in all the, you know, and Anderson tales, Hans Anderson tales, or all those grim fairy tales, or whichever, the fairy tale, there is no happily ever after. No guru, no enlightened master will ever tell you there is a happily ever after story. They don't market stories. They don't market dogmas. Think, what is it that Parshuram or any other sage, like Agastya Muni, let us take his case. Did Agastya Muni or any other sage ever tell their disciples? Agastya Muni's disciples were Vishwamitra, by the way. He was named Vishwaratha. His name was not Vishwamitra, his name was Vishwaratha. Now, did Agastya Muni tell Vishwaratha? Pray to some god, keep somebody's picture. No. They said just follow the Vedas. That's it. Doesn't matter. And do you know Vishwamitra's life? Miserable to the core. His greatest enemy of Vishwamitra was Vashishta Muni. Ever thought of that? Now, which guru is going to market happiness, peace, tranquility? A true master never markets that. So, if you feel that I want to have enlightenment, which means I'm going to be happy, you're wrong. It is called attaining Sat Chit Ananda. Truth, consciousness, and bliss. A blissful state is not happiness. A blissful state is a state of firmness, neither moving towards happiness nor towards sadness. You are neither this nor that. You are there centered. That is it. You are centered. So you are not going to smile or laugh like that for something. Or you are not going to be enjoying something. Neither are you going to be feeling sad because somebody in your family or near and dear one died because of coronavirus. It doesn't matter. You will be centered. And you are not going to say that I don't give a damn to this. If you are saying I don't give a damn, then you are completely off the center. That means you are disturbed or you are not, you are apathetic. You know apathy. A sage is not apathetic. He is not that. He cares. Because his job is to enlighten the world. That is it. Nothing beyond that. And how many people can get enlightened? Please think about it. Do you know the name of any other disciple of Vashishta Muni besides Sri Ram? Can you tell me 10 people who got enlightened with Vashishta Muni? You will not get. Similarly, you can take any other rishi. Enlightenment is not a joke. Getting a PhD in spirituality is difficult. Yeah, Harvard can give you a PhD. Harvard has these traditional courses of religion and all that nonsense. I don't know what they are actually. But there you can get a PhD. You can write a fantastic thesis and yeah, of course you can get it. But true spirituality, Sat Satchitananda doesn't work. So, how many disciples can you name of any of the great spiritual masters? Zero, most of the time. You won't find another person. Now, let us say Sri Krishna, who is the highest, who is the enlightened one after him? Can you name one? No one. You can't find one also. Arjuna was enlightened, if you say? You must be completely off your center. Because Arjuna went to him 3-4 times and told him, can you give me a recap of the Bhagavad Gita? Well, if you need a recap of the Bhagavad Gita, even when you are going to the last resort, last mountain, wherever you are going, I think you haven't achieved anything in life. And hasn't Krishna said to Arjuna that we will be coming again and again and again and again? Has he said these words in the Bhagavad Gita? That means there is no enlightenment for Arjuna. Got it? Simple. To become enlightened, to know the Satchidananda, you can't be lost all the time. So there is a big question mark that you need to ask yourself. What do you mean when you say you get disgusted with work? And if you are, and now I will tell you the reason why we don't know who is enlightened after Vashishta Muni, after Sri Ram, after Sri Krishna, Vishwamitra's disciples, Agastya Muni's disciple. Do you know what is the reason? The answer is staring at you in your face. The enlightened people do not go and advertise that they are enlightened. Answer is very straight. An enlightened person will not even draw attention. You won't find enlightened person going and doing all these kind of nonsensical activities. He's not going to teach you yoga, pranayama and all. He doesn't bother. He doesn't bother about anything. So that is why the next part which he is mentioning is so very important. The path of devotion is the utmost, the highest, the best. Because it doesn't require your 25 cents or 5 cents or 1 cent brain. It doesn't require. You need not be educated also. You don't have to bother your head about trying to learn scriptures or trying to learn yogasanas and pranayamas and all. Nothing is required. There is no necessity for anything. You can be just like Latu Maharaj. Latu Maharaj was the greatest disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He was not an educated person. He was a very, very simple human being. His name was Swami Adbhutananda. Adbhutananda. A very strange person. He was an enlightened being. But never was he in the public eye. Never. Simple reason. You don't have to be anywhere. You just have to have devotion. He was a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Shardama. He worshipped Kali. So Kali was his Ishta. Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Shardama were his gurus. And he worshipped them. His enlightenment was guaranteed. He doesn't have to roam around here and there. No. So, education, not necessary on the path of devotion. Yogasanas, not at all necessary. Reading scriptures, leave it. Doesn't matter. You may not even know a scripture. Do you should bother about it? No. Has a person read the Gita or any other scripture? Ramakrishna Paramahansa himself said, I have never read Gita in my life. Was he enlightened? 100%. Ramana Maharshi? Yes, of course. Sai Baba of Shirdi? Very much so. Now, look at all these great masters, and then you will realize that they were all devotees. Ramana Maharshi, he stayed in Arunachala, Tiruvannamalai. Worshipped Shiva over there. He was completely lost in himself, hardly spoke. That is the way. See, for most of these people, all the great sages and saints, for them, the thing which is important is devotional path. So you can name any person, anywhere, in any part of the world, they are devotees of God, and that is the only qualification is to listen to the beautiful stories. Here he says, one has developed a veneration for listening to tales about me and that kind of a thing, which means just listen to the stories of God, just attend satsangs, be just happy. You know how much of happiness is there when you watch a movie? You see a beautiful, movie, maybe a fairy tale, doesn't matter. You can see a Harry Potter. When you come out of it, do you feel nice about it? Yeah. When you see a very beautiful film, in a romantic love story, do you feel nice about it? Yes. Why? Because you are in love. That is why. You love those stories. You feel one for love. Otherwise, if you go for a war movie or some kind of, are you very angry with what has happened? Of course. You see, there are a lot of war films which you will not like. See, The Killing Fields, Schindler's List, those kind of war movies. You feel, oh my God, why is this happening? But when you go for a love story, Harry Met Sally, it might be a funny story. But you see, you go for all these other kind of movies. So now do you get the point? To be in love, you got to read a lot of these love stories. You have to be lost in them. So when you are reading these stories of the Lord, they are beautiful. You love them. You fall in love with the Lord himself. There is nothing to bother your head about. So this is what he means. So we move to the next verse. So chapter 15, verse 10 from Uddhav Gita. O Uddhava, a man discharging his own duties and performing sacrifices without any desire for result goes neither to heaven nor to hell unless he practices evil. So here Sri Krishna is telling Uddhava, a man discharging his own duties and performing sacrifices without any desire for results goes neither to heaven nor to hell unless he practices evil. Now, the concept of heaven and hell is actually a misnomer. It is actually there is no heaven or no hell. You will ask me, but it is written in the scriptures, isn't it? So there is a heaven and there is a hell. Ask Buddha. Buddha said, I want to be in shunyata, nothingness. Can you tell me whether there is heaven in shunyata or hell in shunyata? There is nothing there. Nothingness. Enlightened person, where is he? Think. Where do these enlightened people go? So there is neither heaven nor hell. You see, heaven and hell only come about Because there is something being done. I will tell you. When you were in school or in school, let us say, if the teacher found you very naughty, what will she do? She will send you to the principal's office. Nowadays, what they do, I don't know. But during my time, they would say, go to the principal's office. And there used to be one bench outside the principal's office. And you are supposed to go and sit on the bench over there and wait for the principal to call you. And that was hell. Because you have done something wrong. All right? And what was heaven? Heaven was when your mom packed you some very nice lunch. Heaven was when you had money in your pocket and you wanted to enjoy. There are those, in the canteens you have some nice stuff which you have always envied. I want to eat that. But you are not carrying that much of money. And that was heaven for you. So, you see, the heaven and hell is a version given to human beings. Heaven is a place of enjoyment. Hell is a place of torture. So you are going through your heavens and hells constantly in life. You think there are heavens and hells somewhere else? So which heaven or hell does an atheist go to? He doesn't even believe in heaven, neither in hell. So which heaven does he go to or which hell does he go to? No idea. Similarly, there are lots of denominations in this world. There are Hindus, Muslims, Christians, all these denominations are there. So which heaven will one denomination go to? Oh, they have a special hell, is it? It's written over there, Hindu hell or Hindu heaven. Is it written like that? So you got your answer. Heaven and hell is only when you do something wrong or you have to enjoy yourself. You want enjoyment. Then only there is a heaven. If you have done something wrong, then only then there is a hell. Otherwise, why should there be an enjoyment or a torture? There is no need. Let us see what Krishna is saying over here. A man discharging his duties. That means, first, you got to do your duties for being a devotee of God. Please understand this. This is an important point for devotional purpose. When you are a devotee of God, your job is to do your duty. Now, duty is to whom? First duty is to your own body. You got to be fit and healthy. When you are fit and healthy, you can continue forward in your life. But if you keep on thinking of wrong stuff, if you keep on thinking, I am sick, I am tired, I am ill, I am not good, I am bad, I feel angry, I feel upset, you know what are the diseases that you're going to get? Too many of them. If you are afraid, that's another disease. Fear creates diseases. So first duty is towards your body. Keep it in a fit condition. Eat good, sattvic, healthy food. You don't have to eat nonsensical stuff. Simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff. Now here I will tell you something which you need to understand. You see, when you are a child, mom has given you milk, very simple cereals and very simple food which didn't have any spices and stuff like that, correct? When you go beyond 55, 60, at that time you are supposed to have the same kind of structure like a child. You're not supposed to be enjoying hot, spicy and all those rich foods. You got to make your stomach like a child. Simple food. Maybe curd rice, dal rice, or something like that. In India, those are simple foods. Vegetables with least amount of spices. You got what I'm saying? Please don't make your meal too spicy, too hot, or too pungent. That will put you on the path of Rajas and Tamas. Your job is to become sattvic in nature. So your body also has to adapt to all these changes. It is already doing those things. You are no longer manufacturing the kind of cells which you were manufacturing earlier. No, your body is not manufacturing them. You are not trained it. So body is the first one. Second one is your mind. You got to control your mind. As you grow older and older, what happens to you? At the age of 60, a person keeps on thinking, I put in 40 years of service, What am I getting? A small pension. I want to enjoy my life. But in the last 40 years, when I look behind, I say I wasted my life. Look at these army veterans. Look at these people from different parts of life, from the government jobs that they have left. Look at the people, those who have worked for big companies and then they have, taken a retirement. They are worried to the core. They are bothered about different things. They are thinking, what is it that I have done in this 30, 40 years of my life? Nothing. Mind talks. My daughter has gone. My son has gone. All my friends, whom I thought they were friends, they were only interested in my money and they were trying to exploit me. All my colleagues, they were always with the, one knife. They wanted to kill me. My boss was the worst creature on earth. This is what you think of. And then you are thinking of the taxes that you have to pay. At the age of 60, I have to think of, oh my God, I have to pay so many taxes. House rent, this, that, whatever things that are there. You see, the water charges are so much. During my time, the water charges were nothing. Oh, so now do you understand where the mind comes in? Control your mind. Your duty is towards your own body, your mind, and your senses first. Go inwards. If you want, go learn this yoga and meditation because that's the place you think spirituality. At least go and learn that thing. Become peaceful and quiet. Don't keep on, thinking about all the nonsensical stuff. Right? So that is the first duty. When you are a youngster, your duty is towards your parents first. And when you get married, it is towards the family that you are going to have. That means your wife, your children. Yes, you owe them. Are you not there in this world? Yes. So you owe it to them also. So you got to work hard for them. The next one is the organization that you are working for. You may be working for government, you may be working for some companies, you may be working as a professional somewhere in the field, or you may be whatever, an artist, or you might be a chartered accountant or whatever. You owe it to the job that you are doing. Whatever job that you are doing, you owe it to that. You got to be totally dedicated and devoted to the job. Disclaimer here, please do not bother about end results. See what he says? Discharging his own duties and performing sacrifices without any desire for results. So when you are serving your parents, your idea should not be, I am serving my parents because I want their property. You're serving your parents because you want money from them. No. You're serving your wife and children by working for them, or the husband and children. Like I said, person yesterday. If you are working, then don't think that they owe it to me because I'm working outside. No, nobody owes it to anybody. You are here in this world to perform the duties, you perform them to the perfection without expectation of anything to actually get happiness in the material world. I'm not joking. This is the way. If you really want real happiness in this world, don't have expectations from anybody, including yourself. But that doesn't mean that I am not going to perform. My expectations are I am going to anyway not perform. Otherwise, don't misuse my words. Otherwise, tomorrow say, Guruji, you only said, I don't have to perform. No, your performance has to be the highest, the peak performance, but no expectation from anybody or anything. So, did you get that order? Very good. Then, after you have served your family, your workplace, all these things, then your job is to serve the society. So service unto the society. Society means the people around you, the environment and everything else. Your country, your nation. Whatever you are doing, you are supposed to do it diligently. It is important to this world at large. Then, while these duties are being performed, your job is to focus only on the divine. Now, how does that happen? It happens in an automatic fashion. Think, if you are sitting in an Uber or a Grab cab or one of those, Lyft or whatever, what is the person, the driver doing? The driver's job is to drive you from one place to the other, correct? So does he owe whatever he is doing to the customer sitting behind? Very much so. Does he do his job perfectly? Yes. So he takes you from one place and drops you at another place. You get charged online, you pay online, everything happens there. So this is how it works. Your job is exactly like that. Doing your duty. Like he was serving the customer, you are serving one master only. And that master is Almighty God. Why? Remember, he is the one who has given you this life. Right? You cannot say my mother and father gave me birth. So where did your mother and father select you from? Which human pen? You understand? You are coming from some pig pen, So a human pen there must be. Oh, I want that pig, as my son or my daughter. They couldn't select. You were there. By the grace of God, you were there in that woman's womb. All right? You got delivered. That is it. The only relationship is you are using that body for coming in this world. God has to use some body to push you out in this world, isn't it? So you owe it to that one Almighty God only. So being born is His grace. You getting good parents so that they can take care of you, it is His grace. So you got your education, you were grown up, maybe you got married, you settled down. It is only because of His grace that you got a job, you got a good education. So you owe it to that one Lord only. Got it? And just like the Uber person gets paid online, you are also getting, your stuff online with God. He's not going to tell you, see, I am paying your salary. He's not going to tell you that. Got it? He'll say, I gave you the job. He doesn't even say these words. You see, most of the time you don't talk to the driver of Uber also. You just sit behind, you're lost in your own phone or something like that, and you take, the journey from one place to the other. The only time he will ask you is, can I drop you here or here? That's it. Beyond that, there is nothing. So there is no talk. So God also doesn't talk to you. But you are supposed to do the job. Okay. So he has given you a job, he has given you a salary, he has given you a good health, he has given you happiness with whatever family members and your friends and relatives. Those are the people he has put in your life. So everything in your life till your death, you owe it to that one Almighty God only. So you are actually serving him and not some ordinary mortal. Correct? So this is what it means by being devoted to God. You know, the child that you may have is a God given child. How do you know that that child which you got with somebody else's? No. It is a God given gift, isn't it? We always say, we thank God, or God, thank you very much. I got a beautiful baby, or something like that you say. I'm talking about most of the people. Some people will say, no, my son's name is XYZAPT, or something like that. And when he's asked the question, do you know? Oh, I thought it was some passcode or something. That was a very comic statement. I, why do you name your child like that in the first place? Name it properly so you will also remember. Otherwise, it will become a password. I'm talking about Elon Musk. You see, he named his child by some very strange figures and names. And when a reporter asked him, how is this person? That is the child's name, AX something something. He's asking, what are you talking about? Is it a passcode or something? So, God given gift. So, their child is a God given gift. Your good health is a God given gift. So we always got to thank God for everything. So this is how devotion develops. You should always be bothered about serving God. Serving God by doing the best things in this world. That means you have to put in efforts in the material world. You see, you are doing your job, do it thoroughly, perfectly, diligently, religiously. You should do it. And not half-heartedly. Not bothered about if I don't get paid, I'm not going to do this job. No, that is not the way. That is not the criteria. Please remember this. And whatever salary that you are getting, find out whether you actually are putting in that much amount of work. A laborer who puts in more hard work gets only this much salary. And you may be a CEO of a company, you don't even put a dot of work and yet you get a salary. This is a discrepancy in the world. Okay. And this is God given. Now nobody else can give him. Who has made him the CEO? So this is the way in which, so a man discharging his own duties and performing sacrifices without any desire for result, guy neither goes to heaven or hell unless he practices evil. So remember this, while being a devotee, your job is to do your duty in the material world, complete allegiance to God. He is the one who has given you the job and your wife and your children or your husband or whoever it is. God has given. Your job is to do your job, your duty perfectly to them while holding the feet of God. Devotion is that. But if you are bothered about results, then you are not on the path of devotion at all. Again, Karma Yoga also suggests the same thing. Now, let us look at it. If you are thinking that I am going to go to hell because I did something wrong, or I'm going to go to heaven because I have been doing so nice stuff, I'm always doing good stuff to this world, I am a goody person. You're bothered about heaven. Well, if you do evil deeds, there is a hell. Got the answer? What to do? So this is what Krishna is telling Uddhava. So we move to the next verse, verse 11. Chapter 15 of the Uddhav Gita, verse 11. Such a man becoming sinless and pure attains to pure knowledge or perchance devotion to me while remaining in this very world. Now this is a line which you should be happy about. If you do your job, if you are on the path of Sankhya Yoga, which is knowledge-based path, if you are on that path, and if you have given up everything in this world, you have become a sannyasi, you have gone and you have devoted your complete life towards meditation and sitting in the mountains and keeping all your, everything shut down, all those things, and not bothered about anything. Yes, that is called the path of knowledge. The second path is the path of karma yoga, where you are not having any expectation from anybody, including your bosses or your wife or your children or nothing, nobody, not even your country, your state. You're not even expecting that. When you are doing those kind of things, you can attain liberation or realization. So Sankhya Yoga, you can become a yogi, you can sit in the mountains for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, I don't know how many years you want to sit over there. Go and do that. Lead a very simple life, like a person from the jungles, doesn't matter. You can be staying in a cave like a Neanderthal man, doesn't matter. But you are completely lost on the path of Sankhya Yoga, doing all those things, duties that are required. Karma Yoga, all the job that is being prescribed to you, you are doing it thoroughly, perfectly, without expectation of any results. And if you are on the path of devotion, where you are completely devoted to Krishna, the Lord Almighty, and you are not bothered about anything else in this world. You are listening to all the satsangs, you are listening to all the bhajans, the kirtans, and all those holy songs, and singing them, writing them, being lost in the glory of God, listening to His stories, everything. When you have done all that, He says, perchance, devotion to me, you can attain liberation here and now, right here and now in this world. You don't have to go to any other place over there to get that liberation. Enlightenment comes to the material worldly person here itself. Material worldly person means a person with body. He can get his enlightenment here itself in this material world. He doesn't have to go to some place and then get it. There is no pass for another place, okay? So enlightenment, realization, liberation, or whatever that you wish to call it, can come to you right here in their own body. So, while remaining in this very world, you can attain it. And what else you can get? When you get this liberation, every other world opens up for you. That means you get the knowledge also, you get everything that is desired. Not desired that way, but desire from the spiritual perspective. The spiritual perspective. Spiritual perspective means you want to meet God. You can meet Him. We move to verse 12. So Uddhav Gita chapter 15 verse 12. Even the dwellers of heaven as well as hell desire this world, which is conducive to knowledge and devotion. But the other two do not serve this purpose. Now this is an important statement. Who lives in the heaven? The gods live in the heaven. Now, which is these gods we are talking about? If the moment I say G-O-D-S, it is small G-O-D-S, which are called demigods. They are not gods. They are not God. By the way, there is only one G-O-D, capital G-O-D, right? The heaven is a place for demigods. Demigods are like all the 5-star hotel owners. Okay? They are rich people. They are very, very rich, wealthy and all those kind of things. Like they have a reception committee, when you go inside a heaven, you will get a, yeah, of course, welcome drink over there. Maybe at the gate, one muchad fellow will be there, standing and opening the door for you. He may be Saint Peter for all you know, I don't know whether he has got mustache or what. But Saint Peter is the first person that you're going to meet in heaven, isn't it? Exactly like that. So there is a welcome committee over there. There is a welcome drink over there in the heaven. You will be also ushered to your room. Okay, the person who is saying, don't worry about your luggage, sir. I will take care of it. So heaven is like that. Like you have all these different, Four Seasons, Hilton, all these kind of hotels. They are owned by some conglomerates. These are big, big houses, big people, rich people. In the same way, these heavens are owned by these gods. Every god is the boss of that heaven. So Indradev has his own heaven. Brahmaji has his own heaven. Vishnu has his own heaven. Some heavens have a name. They put one name outside. Like if you have a house, you can put a name outside, no? So, Vishnu's heaven is called Vaikuntha. So tomorrow, if you feel that you want to go to Vaikuntha, you can put a name outside your own door. Okay, Vaikuntha. Maybe you will be in that heaven. Who knows? And if you go to Shiva's heaven, it will be called Kailash. So you can attend Kailash over there. But going to Kailash, okay. So Shiva's heaven's outside board says Kailash. Inside, it is cool. It's the Himalayas, like that. Cool, tanda, cool. So yeah, all full of ice and all those. But by the way, the one who is going to welcome you over there are all demons and all kinds of funny creatures, okay? Because his world is of all those guys, okay? Ganas, they call them. Very fierce looking guys, all right? But don't get scared in his heaven. And in Vishnu's heaven, all very hot people are there, okay? So these are demigods. All right? Now let us go to hell. It doesn't mean you have to physically go to hell, but understand what happens in hell. So in hell, there are so many hells. In the Hindu scriptures, there are supposedly 7 hells. Okay, 7, supposedly. In the Buddhist scriptures, there are 21 hells. Don't ask me the names of them because I have not gone there to see their board outside. See, they also put a board over there. Yeah, our hells, I have been a little bit because I wanted to take a journey to find out. So somewhere it is written Talatal, Sutal, Nital, Patal, all these. It's written over there. So yeah. So there is a hell like that. And hell is ruled by whom? I want you to think. Do you think hell is ruled by some nasty looking guy with, 2 horns sticking up over there? Why would anybody be like that? See, if you go to hell, you got to enjoy there also, isn't it? So the hell is not a place for torture the way it is. And why would anybody go to hell and get scared? No. If you can think of Bali Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, the very famous, from the Puran, he's a very famous guy. He gave those 3 steps to Vishnu. Don't you remember that? Vamana Avatar. So anyway, he is the master of one hell. So imagine, Bali Maharaj, you think he is looking some grotesque looking creature or what? I'm welcoming you. I mean, just imagine making a face like this, some very weird face and welcoming you. Why should he welcome you like that? If you have to go to his hell, well, he's a good looking guy. Yeah. So, hell is ruled by these people. All right. Now, they get promotion in hells like they get promotion in heavens also. Heaven also, there is a promotion, there is a hierarchy. And in the hierarchy, you get promoted. Like that in hell also, there is a promotion. Okay, today you are going from the 6th hell to the 7th hell. You are now in charge. You are the CEO of the 7th hell now. Go. Now, why am I telling you all these things? Because this heaven and hell are two places. They can never attain enlightenment. Nobody from heaven or nobody from hell can ever get enlightened. This is the verse where it is mentioned. Even the dwellers of heaven as well as hell desire the world which is conducive to this knowledge and devotion. But the other two do not serve this purpose. Going to heaven or going to hell will never get you enlightened. So nobody in heaven and nobody in hell can ever get enlightened. For that, what is the criteria? The criteria is those from the heaven want to take a human birth. Those from hell want to take a human birth. Human body is the only vehicle towards enlightenment. This is the only subway which will take you to enlightenment. No other subway goes there. Like you have the green line, the yellow line, and all those other lines, across the world you have. So, this is the only line, the human body is the only line which can take you towards enlightenment. So, no gods, demigods, no devils, have, all those hellish creatures, they can never become enlightened. For them to get enlightened, they have to first take up a human body. So, let me caution you one thing. Amongst us are people from these dimensions. So there are gods amongst us and there are demons amongst us also. So you better see them, know them if you have to, and be scared of them if they are horrible characters. You better be scared. Because these are hellish creatures. Sometimes you got to be scared of them. Have you not seen that there are all these guys from the films that you see? They are all having some weird kind of names and characters. Yeah, they are there in this material world also. So, heaven and hell creatures have to be born on earth as a human being to attain enlightenment. Otherwise, there is no other path. From heaven to enlightenment, no way. No way. It doesn't happen. So from heaven, come to earth, become a human being, and then traverse the path and then go towards enlightenment, liberation, emancipation. Got it? Self-realization. If you are in hell, you have to come to the earth as a human being, get enlightened, and then go towards that path. Otherwise, no. So see this. Even the dwellers of heaven as well as the hell desire this world. Why do they desire this world? Even when you go to your village or some such place, don't they say, oh, this fellow got possessed by a devil? The devils, the demons, why do they want to possess the body? They want to possess the body because they want to get enlightened. Maybe they want to harm you also, who knows? So whichever way you look at it, there's the evil characters also. So yeah, but otherwise they need the human body because they want to get enlightened. Gods need human body so that they can get enlightened. So, which is conducive to knowledge and devotion. So they take this birth on earth so that the earth, human beings, the human body is conducive, is the only factor which can give you knowledge and devotion. These two things can be attained over here, but the other two do not serve the purpose. The other two places, they do not serve the purpose. If you have a body of a god, you are only going to be slave for those billion years that you are going to get stuck up as God. And imagine if you have become a god of knowledge, you are only going to be teaching for the billion years that you are the god of knowledge. If you have become a construction worker over there, do you think they are not there in heavens also? Huh? So you're going to be remaining the same guy for so many millions of years. We don't know. And if you have gone to hell, there you will be stuck up forever. Don't bother about it. So he got the answer. So even if you think you are going to become a god, no use. So you have to be born on this earth again as a human being to attain enlightenment. So this is what Krishna has told Uddhava in the Uddhav Gita. So do not crave for any heavens or do not even bother about hells. You just focus on doing your duty, serving the purpose why you are over here. Only serve the purpose. Don't get disturbed. So you should not be bothered about end results. Live in this world like a lotus, not disturbed by anything. No water will splash on you. Nothing is going to happen. And then only understand that this body has been given for enlightenment purpose only and go towards that destination and goal. So we have come to the end of this verse and I will see you all in the coming week with the next verse. That is verse 13 onwards. Take care. Have a very good day. Bye.